Hello, thank you for joining us for the Producers Circle. I'm your host, Gabe Castro, and on this episode, we will be focusing on the Alliance for Community Media's Hometown Awards. We'll talk about submitting to festivals and attending conferences to approve your work. And I have invited two producers today to share their experiences, successes, and advice. I have Shamele Jordon, a producer of Genealogy Quick Start, and Hilary Brashear, producer of Squirrel Hill Falls. And both producers have been awarded at the Hometown Awards. Shamele's program received the Best Instructional Training Program by an independent producer, and Hilary's film was awarded the Best Documentary by an independent producer. So let me bring you both on. Hello.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining me on my program.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, I'm so excited to talk to you about the experience of submitting to the festival, but also your work. Both of you have created really amazing work, which obviously award-winning worthy. And so I know, right? It's just such a wonderful experience. And I think folks who are learning about the Alliance for Community Media's Hometown Awards will see just how wonderful that experience can be in, showing it to a national audience, right? And to have it recognized on this grand scale must be so amazing. So I'd love to start with having you both kind of introduce yourself and the work that you do. We can start with Hilary.
Sure. So I'm a documentary filmmaker and editor, and Squirrel Hill Falls was a project that was a way for me to learn more about the neighborhood I was living in Philadelphia at the time. And I lived on the same block as this tiny abandoned gated park, and I wanted to know the history of it. So I began talking to my neighbors and recording the interviews. And in relationship with these neighbors, kind of created a hybrid documentary fiction film that imagined a magical world inside of the park. And I was able to collaborate with friends as animators and musicians. And it was a really special collaborative neighborhood project that I was so honored to be awarded at this conference.
Yeah. I think people will find as they learn about both of your programs that they're very unique in just an interesting approach to these topics that we might have a very specific outlook about, right? Like we come in with these preconceived notions of these topics, and then you get to experience your programs, and it's like, whoa, it kind of really transforms those understandings and the information that we kind of come in with. So, Shamele, tell us about your program and about you as a creator.
Sure. I'm Shamele Jordon, and I am the creator and producer of Genealogy Quick Start. And it's always been my dream to create a show. And when Philly Cam eventually, won their fight for public access in the area, I could not wait to come and realize my dream, because I believe public access is where dreams are made, right? And so my show is Genealogy Quick Start. I'm a genealogist, and I just really enjoy helping people to learn their family history. I think it's so important to know who you are. I mean, look at today, identity is huge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so part of knowing your identity is to understand your past. And Genealogy Quick Start was created because within the genealogy field, we all of a sudden have this influx of people who wouldn't traditionally be considered genealogists. We have DNA takers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they're taking their DNA and they think that's it. And I'm like, no, there's more to it than that. The DNA is just one tool. And so I wanted to make genealogy a lot more accessible to people who aren't bookish or want to sit in dusty archives and courthouses for hours in libraries like most genealogists do. So that's why I created Genealogy Quick Start. And the crazy thing is that the people who are, genealogists who love to do all that stuff, they are my biggest supporters and part of the live audience.
Yes, I really love this kind of connection for both of you where there is this journey and expression of self, right? And that's also this connection to our community, this past and the present. There, both of your programs kind of address that. And I think that's such a wonderful like link that you don't see very often. And for two really different stories, to have that kind of link is just really fascinating to me. So I wanted to kind of open up with this discussion about what are some unique things about your program and the way that you were telling these stories that you feel really elevated your program or had it stand out to the viewers?
I think one thing that I was interested in experimenting with in my film was um, this combination of documentary and fiction. And I think that process of making and then watching, even for myself, it's been a few years since I completed it. When I watch it, I'm like, oh, this is like a really fun story. And I think that that combining was part of the fun of the process, and that really came out of many different iterations of the film and exploring with the people I interviewed to get their ideas of what kind of like magical world they would imagine in the park. And I used those ideas to write a script and kind of develop the character of the park itself and try to think of the park as having a personality and what would that be like. And so the process of creating this story was very much informed by the community and both the residents who had lived in the neighborhood much longer than I, who knew the history that I didn't, and the more newcomers, people who I knew who were also bringing their talents in music and animation to create a really rich, vibrant piece that I think has resonated with people.
Yeah, I think like the kind of mixed media aspect of it really reactivates the space and just elevates that story because you are talking about a space that is, closed up. It is something that people aren't enjoying or taking part in the way that they had in the past. So kind of bringing these elements and bringing these voices back, I feel like lights it up. It, reactivates it into this magical world
Yeah.
that we're like passing by and wondering like, what is on the other side of this? Like, who is on the other side of this? And I think that really shows with the production and the artistic parts of it that you took.
So you wanted to know what makes my show different and what makes it stand out. I would say, my goal was to reach an audience that's not traditional for what I'm doing. So I had to definitely be different. Genealogists will spend hundreds, often thousands of dollars to go and sit in rooms for hours and hear people talk about looking up dead folks. And most people are not going to do that. And so I had to come up with a way to make it fun, right? Also, to not saying that, sitting in rooms for hours isn't fun because I actually love it. But for the average person, I needed to make it fun and more conversational. And at the end of the day, if I can meet both of those, I'm making it more accessible. I want people to feel encouraged, inspired that once they're done with the show, they're going and they're looking for their people. They're figuring out, they're going to call their grandmom, their cousin Margaret. I want them to feel energized and the desire to take the steps, which I call it steps, because that makes it more accessible. These are the steps to just really preserve your history, because that's what this is all about. Like I said, it's about identity and it's about telling your story. They have those books that they teach us in school and they're fighting us about what we should know in school. Your family should know the truth based off of your research. And so I want to be able to help you to do that.
Yeah, and I believe it was you who I first heard the term edutainment from, because that's really what your program is. It's like this: you are getting to experience something that could be very bookish, right? You're learning about something that you have to like scour archives for, but the presentation of those materials, the way that you're talking about that history, allows it to be more digestible to this audience and get excited about it and like get excited about paper and books. And like people who are long gone, but it really transforms the way that you're thinking about your history.
And one thing I didn't say, I have two special guests, two guests who are on every week. They're absolutely amazing. They are the hysterical ones. I'm the straight person. They are absolutely hysterical. And I have these amazing guests from across the country, the top genealogists from across the country. Like the pandemic actually enabled me to do the show that I wanted to do.
Mhm.
Prior, everything was in the studio, and of course I have no budget to fly people in, and so I even tried to do different ways to like web or WebEx, whatever that was we were using, to Zoom people, to bring people into the studio. So the pandemic really helped me to make the show more of the show that I wanted to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And for Shamel, when you received this award, you were actually able to come to the Hometown Awards in person. So could you talk about like that experience and just being in that community in person, something we really miss in the midst of the pandemic?
So first of all, I was shocked that anyone would think that I was not going to go in person to pick up my award. Like, it didn't matter. I was flying. I took the train actually to Baltimore. I was going to pick up my award. And it was a very interesting experience. It was my first experience around public access outside of Philly Cam and the kind of
Mhm.
Philly scene. And so it was really neat mingling with people from, the Manhattan station, Brooklyn station, different, just all over the country. But Philly Cam took home 4 awards. Like, I don't know if that's normal, but for me, I was like, "Wow, this is awesome. This is awesome." So the big takeaway from this for me was Philly Cam. Philly Cam's support for us. I was not, I can't even remember how this came about, but I know Dee Dee Haddock, she was Halleck, she was like, they should be submitting you for stuff. And I was like, what, Dee Dee? And next thing I know, they're like, Shamel, you won. Like, I don't even remember putting anything in, but I think they might have used my Cami stuff to help me out with that. So it was just really a nice surprise. And what it told me is that I'm on the right track. And so that was really helpful because it takes a lot to do a show and a documentary. Lord, what a documentary. Oh my goodness. Yes, it takes a lot of energy. So yeah.
Yeah, I also want to thank Philly Cam because I hadn't heard of this award opportunity, and I think it was you, Gabe, who reached out to me who recommended that I submit, and so I said sure, and then I kind of forgot about it, and then months later, I was notified that I got an award, and I was like, oh my god, and now it's hanging on my wall there.
I
And
see it.
it's
Very cool.
yeah, I wasn't able to attend the conference in 2022 when I received the award, but the communication I had from the Alliance for Community Media was really lovely, and they mailed it to me. And yeah, it was like I was really grateful that you recommended me, and that um, I think it's really wonderful that such a alliance exists of community media, because that is really what my project was focused on, and wanting to make stories for the neighborhood I lived in, and a way to capture the history. I love that term, and edutainment of
Mhm.
it. It captures the history of a neighborhood, but also presents it in a fun and creative way.
Yes, I reached out. It's something that we try to do every year. Is like I feel like we at Philly Cam really appreciate the work that our creators do and the range of these producers, and just like we are seeing this amazing art. And so to have a place like the Alliance for Community Media to then like kind of show off, there is a bit of pride that comes with it. Like, yep, that's our producer. Like, are you seeing like, oh, we got 4 awards, and it's you all who are doing the work, right? We're literally just here to like cheer you on. But for folks who are unaware of the Alliance for Community Media, like this is a national conference that happens every year where we're bringing together all of these different community access stations from the public government and educational stations coming together to support one another, to amplify those voices that are in our specific community. So to have the Hometown Awards where all over the country people are seeing this work, we get to have this pride, and so when we're reaching out and we're supporting you to go and put your work out there, it's for that purpose, because we see it and we want the world to see it. So so glad that both of you were able to find meaning in that specific conference. And I actually wanted to talk a bit about some of the more technical parts. I know, Shamele, it's been a minute since you applied, and for you, Hilary, it was like yesterday, and but when you were like deciding on the categories, and when you're kind of trying to siphon out what is the magic and the unique qualities of your program to show to these viewers, like what was that experience like for you to like pick the category and to like find your clip, or to just figure out how to showcase your work in that way?
I can start. I think it was maybe a little bit more straightforward for me because I had been submitting my film to other festivals. So I had like some summaries, some still images, a trailer that I had already created for other submission that I could kind of plug into this program. And there were like many categories to choose from. So I was like, had to read through that list carefully. But I think while my film is a combination of fiction and hybrid, I still see it as a documentary. I feel like there is space to tell the truth using, fictional means. And so that felt like the right category for my project to go into.
Yeah, I mean, there's more than one way to tell a story, right? There's more than one way to cover a real event or a real space, and so I think that's what really probably drew them to the work too. And there is that careful consideration, because there's a very long list, and you might find that you fit a lot of those categories. Can you tell us a bit about like your experience with submitting to other festivals? Like, you talked a bit about what you have to prepare, but just for folks who might be, kind of reluctant to get into that space, what is it like for you?
Yeah, well, I think that submitting to festivals, there's services like Film Freeway where you can create a profile and they give you categories to fill out, like a 1-sentence summary, a longer summary, and once you fill all that information out, you can just look through the festivals that are gathering submissions through Film Freeway and submit to them. There is costs to submit, and so that's something I planned for in fundraising. I tried to raise some funds to help cover submission costs. And sometimes you can reach out to film festivals and ask for a fee waiver. And some film festivals will, some won't. And then you, I think the hardest piece is probably the first like act of like filling out all the information. But once you've done it, then you can just kind of like reuse that for other festivals. And yeah, you can kind of just like see when the deadline is, and then like, okay, I'll just submit and just submit. um,
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely just that big challenge of finding your log line or like your whole
right.
pitch, right? For like
Yeah.
my program is amazing. Here's why. Getting that feedback from folks who are like, does this make sense to you? Did I
Yeah.
capture it? That once you do that and once you've gotten that feedback, it is something you can absolutely replicate for different festivals. And Film Freeway is a great resource for that. In that they are just like it's like you put it in a shopping cart.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
that's like so fun. Shamel, tell us about your experience in submitting and
Yeah, thanks for the Film Freeway. I love that. I'm going to have to check it out. They need to do something like that for grant applications.
Oh
I
yeah,
know
that
Mhm,
would be great.
mhm. Put that in the ether right now.
Yeah.
lift it up, ladies. So for me, just like you said, I think that the application part of it was based off of what I did for the Cammys, which is the Philly Cam Awards. And for me, it was fairly straightforward which category. It was instructional.
Mhm.
And I'm independent, so it was, independent producer. And what to submit was the hardest, right?
Yeah.
What to choose because I had multiple shows. And so I decided to choose the episode that highlighted what I was trying to do, which is to take the non-traditional genealogist. And at that time, you would say the youngest folks would be the millennials. I was able to take my cousin, who's a millennial, from his great grandmom all the way back to slavery.
Wow.
And so that was the episode, just
Mm,
letting him see his reaction of, oh my goodness, to let people
mm,
see how accessible this all can be.
So, yeah, and I think that's like a big challenge too, right? Is that you have this entire program, right? And the entirety of it is what's important, and you have to whittle it down and capture this one little part that's supposed to like express what the beauty is of this program, and you give them that amount of time to watch, and then so that is a big challenge. Is just finding what works. And I always suggest, having someone, look over it. And I wanted to see if, with other festivals or other submission spaces, do you feel there have been any barriers, or was there any like reluctance on your part to submit to certain spaces?
I think the largest barrier is the submission fees, because they can be pricey, and so in my process I kind of had to decide, did this submission fee feel worth applying to, and then like what are my chances of um, getting accepted to this film festival. And I think Philly Cam did offer to cover partial or all of the submission costs for the hometown media, which was really generous. I had already had some budget in my for my film to cover that cost myself, and it was a higher. I think it was $78 to apply, which is a higher end cost. But to me, it felt worth it because my project was such a community-based project, and like to have a conference that is all about that, it felt like a good fit, and it turned out that it was.
Yeah, yeah, you definitely need a way like, do I fit in this space? Is it worth the time? Is it worth the effort? And is it worth the money? That's a
Yeah.
very big question, right? And we do try to support those we can because I mean, if money is or financial is the only obstacle that someone has as a producer, like that just doesn't sit right with us. Like that doesn't as a creator, and especially as a public media creator, where you're like, doing this out of like your passion and your heart. So that's definitely something to consider for anyone who's looking at film festivals. Is the same thing for grants too, right? Do I fit in this grant space? Does it make sense for my project? Will they want this? Will they want me? And trying to find the places that will value you and your work. Right. Shamele, did you have any challenges with submission, or have you thought about, submitting to any places since?
Yeah, it's really just dedicating the time. I have something that I'm about to submit to, and it's like all of these questions, it's like pulling my soul out.
Yeah.
All of this stuff. But seriously, once I fill this out, that's my template to just pull and put, because I haven't gone to this extent that this application is asking for. And so seriously, the only way I can get through it is to say this is going to be all reusable,
Hmm.
all
Hmm.
recyclable information. So yeah, it's really just the time to find the right fit for you, as you were saying, the right fit, um, and dedicating the time to submit. And yeah, there's sometimes it's like, I don't know. There was something I saw that I wanted to submit for, and I was kind of, and they said, oh, take a look at the past winners. And I
Hmm.
looked at the
Hmm.
past winners. I was like, I know her, him, her, and him. I could do this. I could do this.
Yes, that's so true. Definitely looking at the past winners is a great. That same thing for grants as well, right? It's like looking at who's already been awarded. That really helps you find your space, finds what they might lean towards,
Mhm.
which is super helpful. And that actually, for my last question, and then we'll wrap with like where people can find more information about you and your work. Is do you either of you have any advice for people who might be, taking this first plunge and step into submitting to a film festival or an awards like the Hometown Awards?
Well, I want to say first, I know it can be scary to put yourself out there, but don't let the fear of rejection stop you. I mean, I
Hmm.
have like way many more rejections than I have wins. And I think you submit it and then you forget about it. And, if you get a rejection, then you know what? So has like so many other people. And then if you get it's acceptance, it's like a nice surprise. And um, I think it's also partially a numbers game. Like the more you put yourself out there, like the more opportunities can come find you. Um, and so, yeah, don't let the fear of rejection dissuade you. Is my advice.
Yeah, take your chances for sure. And Jamel?
I just say be bold. Go for it. Be bold. If this is something that you're doing and you believe in it, if you don't believe in yourself, why would anybody else believe in you? So just really just go for it. We always give ourselves excuses for not doing something. If you want to, excuse yourself into failure, go ahead. But hey, go for it. What do you have to lose? What do you have to lose?
Yeah, and you always have a fan at Philly Cam, right? Like
Yeah.
we love what you're creating. We're here for it. And if you ask us, we're gonna be like, yeah. Absolutely. Like if you need one person, to tell you what you're doing is amazing, you got it right here. Excellent. Thank you both so much for joining me for this episode of Producers Circle. I'd love to share where folks can find you and learn more about projects that you're continually working on.
You can find out what I'm up to at my website, which is my name, hilarybrashear.com.
Excellent. Thank you. And Jamel?
And genealogyquickstart.com and YouTube and Facebook.
Excellent. Thank you both so much. And viewers, listeners, make sure that you check out our wonderful guests. And if you do have any questions about the Hometown Awards and submitting this year, you can reach out to me, or for our radio producers, you can reach out to Allison. The information will be below. And I hope to see you on the next episode of Producers Circle.